Ready? Okay. It's 1 o'clock, and this is the meeting of the Finance Committee. And I'll call the meeting to order. I see no one in the audience for public comment. Take it away.
So one of the things that we've talked about throughout the last year or so is, obviously with the very good news for the district that the referendum passed last night, that's a large step forward in getting us back into the positive. To think that that's going to get us all the way is silly to think that way. So we continue to have to look at things, we have to address things as they come up. So one of the things that was on the docket to discuss was registration fees. A few months ago I provided the board, it's the third document over there in front of you, with surrounding schools registration fees. And you'll see that we're lower than most, we're higher than I think one or two. Manteno's an anomaly because of their funding structure. So that was kind of the basis that we did when we started way back with the activity/athletic fees and then the technology fee. So with the help of Mr. Duncan, one of the things we looked at was when was the last time 200 actually addressed the registration fees? Because one of the things I continued to hear when I would go and present about the referendum was our registration fees are so low, it's silly how low they are. And it's true. I mean, it's very low. So we did some research, and the last time we could find a board making any kind of action was back in 2016. The registration for elementary still was at 60. The junior high went from 60 to 70 at that time. And then what they did is they took all of the textbook fees and registration fees of the high school and consolidated it down to the $200 fee. And then they still had some offshoots within the high school specific that continued to be charged. So thinking that's 7 years ago, and to not do anything with registration over 7 years ago, again, kind of gets us in the predicament we are in 2023 with revenue and in terms of expenditure. So full disclosure, I actually provided you guys 3 examples because I did all this work before the referendum. And so obviously that should have some kind of bearing on the discussion that we have moving forward. And so the first option I provided you guys was do a flat at the elementary and the junior high, which are the lowest by far, do a $40 increase on both of those. I would get it to 100 and 110 respectively, and then a $25 addition to the high school to get that at $225. By doing that little bit of an increment, that gets us about just under $40,000. Now, please note, when I do this, I'm doing this on numbers that we're projecting the same kind of enrollment we've had over the last few years, and under the assumption that everybody pays registration fees. Please know that we have families who are free and reduced and would actually pay that. So what if I tell you it's $39,000? It's probably closer to $32,000. All right. Option B I gave you was, instead of saying 40, 40, and 25, doing a carte blanche 40 across all 3 of them to be 100, 110, and 240. That would get you about $44,000 and some change. And then the one I no longer recommend because of the good news that happened last night, the other suggestion was doubling everything. And obviously that would be I have to sneeze, I apologize. That'd be a substantial increase to the high school. Maybe I'm not going to sneeze. If I do, I apologize. So those are kind of 3 options I brought to you. And then looking more specifically at the high school, some of those fees. The last time we looked at KACC being increased, the last one I saw was 2013, so that was a decade ago. So I suggest with the large number of students we now have going there, we're now in 2 buses.
Yeah. So we couldn't fit on one. We've got more now.
Correct. Now,
Yeah.
Steve. Now, again, it's one of those rules of 10%. We have 80% of kids actually enroll in this. We're probably going to be closer to 70. Even the big bus, Kelly might be able to sneak 72 on, but we're sitting 3 to a seat. There's a more likelihood we'll have 2 buses running. And so I would recommend that fee just going up to 150 instead of 100. It still doesn't, obviously we pay tuitions on these students, but it's not going to cover that tuition. That's not the goal of this, but it allows us to at least more or less compensate for that additional driver. And then in terms of our electives, business class, just because of the technology cost associated with those classes going up by $10 to $25 per semester. Same with computers class. Foods and home ec, same thing with $10. So basically a $10 increase on the classes that They're electives, but they're classes that we have to do additional expenditures for so the
Yeah,
kids can
and
continue to do those
inflation.
things. Right.
Because you have
basically,
to
yeah.
provide the food, you have to provide,
Right,
yeah.
right. And again, we're not out to make money, but I can tell you for a fact, foods and home ec, we're obviously losing.
Yeah, okay.
And
They
I
cook-
don't
yeah,
want
they do a
them to
lot in
stop
there.
feeding me, so we
Yeah.
gotta make sure. So that's kind of everything I provided you guys to start having that conversation. You'll also see Larry's is highlighted because Larry got the first copy. The other ones, I've also included the athletic fee. They've been crossed out. Those have already been board approved, but I wanted to have everything on there. This is what Joe puts on the website. So, what questions do you have?
Is there a way kind of to spread this out? Like, I know we just did the sports, and that's an elective, so that's one thing. And then I do agree with KACC, because looking at all of the surrounding schools, we are the lowest.
Yep.
And we are the same, and put even at 150, we're still just right there.
Yep.
And even with just increasing the $40, we're still, I mean, we're pretty comparable with Grant Park, but you look at the other ones, Mantino, Peatone, $250 at the elementary, like, we're just not even close. I don't want to make it so much next year. Like, we're doing the $40 technology fee, and then $50
Yep.
technology
No, I
fee.
just don't want you to-
Yeah, yeah. And then doubling the sports. I know we need to raise them because it hasn't happened, but I don't want to do it all at once either.
Okay.
If that makes sense, you know?
That makes perfect sense. I mean, if you want to do a 2-year,
Yeah, that was
2 or
my thing, if we
3,
could kind
yeah.
of plan out, and this is a plan, okay, we want to get to here, and we know how life is and how finances
Yeah.
are, and we are very cognizant of that, and luckily we got the referendum, so we do have a little more wiggle room to where we can extend that and make it a little more of a gradual process.
again, and I don't think it would really hold a lot of water if you guys do a 2-year plan and you pass it as a board. The next board may have a
Yeah,
different thing to
true.
say. You'd have to propose that again next year, but
Yeah.
if you guys would like to see a $20 this year, $20 next year, and do a 40-year over 2 span, or 25, anything is in the air. I'm just giving you guys some preliminary numbers and opening that conversation.
Do we know, and I mean, probably don't because they're other schools, like how often do they raise their fees? Like, we're looking at this, and then our next year, are they,
Oh, I did, I
yeah, I know,
guess
I
could-
wouldn't even
yeah.
have thought of that either, I just was thinking of it now.
I have a meeting with a lot of them next week, so I can, if I see them, I'll gladly ask them for it.
Yeah, I think we should recommend the 2020, doing a 2-year, and go with a total of 40. Any other, definitely the KAC, just go
Yeah.
up now, because that's,
Those are expenses we have to
Just-
meet next year, especially if it's a
Yeah.
whole new bus, that's doubling our expenses.
yeah, fuel costs are getting
So-
absurd.
So what you would like me to bring to the board on Wednesday is a 20 across all the levels, $20?
Yeah.
Okay, so I can do that.
For 2 years.
Right, and so what we'll do is on Wednesday night, we'll post it as a 2022, 2023 increase of registration fees by $20. Are you fine with the business, computer, food, and home ec, with
Yeah.
those going up 10?
Yeah,
Okay. So this would be as presented, but right now, what we'll do in the finance committee portion of our board meeting, we'll go through what these entail. So when you say as presented, or when Julie
Yeah.
says as presented, and then you're all right with the 50 on, KCC. All right. Mr. Myers asked about parking. I'm honest with you, I'm completely fine with whatever he wants to do. Because he says at his kid's school, they do $50. I don't care. So I'll let Mr. Meyer kind of make that decision. And if he wants to, maybe I'll have him bring it up to you guys that day. He and I didn't really engage in that. It's kind of too small of
Yeah.
difference to really worry too much about that.
well, that's one of those hard things, because how do you enforce it? And all the cost and the headache that comes along with that to do
Right.
that, and they have to get to school. So are we gonna have kids now starting to park where they shouldn't be parked and walking where they shouldn't be walking when we have the lots? I
Yeah,
mean,
true.
that's my take on it, but,
Yeah, $20 is,
yeah.
it's just enough to where people kind of feel obligated to pay.
Yeah.
The staff lunch is just to, the $4. We have some staff at the very top, some staff who does use it. By state law, we have to have it no less than 40 cents over the highest paid lunch. So what we're kind of doing is just kind of building in when we have to raise lunch fees. When the state says we are permitted to do so again. That is not something I'm recommending right now. We did an adjustment last year, and so.
Right.
In terms of everything else that's on this list, there's nothing else that kind of popped to me that would make sense for us to kind of address. So, yeah, AP exams, that's the cost of the test.
Yeah.
PE uniforms, I think that's the cost to us.
And it's probably gonna come up again, reimbursement for AP.
At this time, I would not recommend it. And again, until you guys see a budget that I provide you that's in the black, anything that you guys have removed, I would continue to recommend not reinstating. And again, that wouldn't be next year. Next year, as I've said, anytime I presented, next year will be in the red. This referendum does not affect the
Yeah.
FY '24, it's FY '25. And so next year, you will see about a, I don't know, $1 million to $1.5 million deficit again. We're trying to, again, get a lot of that under control. Well, it shouldn't be $1 million, $1.5 million, but we're getting a lot of that under control.
Okay.
The good news is, we're not gonna have to have conversations of cutting massive amount of staff.
Yes.
And so,
And then if we can go slow, like I said, we do the 20 and then readdress it, who knows? I'm sure everyone's going to go up again by then and stuff like that too, and increments, if we can afford to do it, I think are more helpful to the families.
all right, I will have that all ready and on the agenda. I did include an other on there, if there's anything else that you guys needed to ask in terms of, finances, anything else regarding what's going on. The answer is no, I don't have a plan already in place, but now that we have the referendum, we will be moving forward with a positive outlook in terms of what can we keep and continue to grow instead of what do we need to cut.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the positive aspect of what we did.
We have the plan, you did the strategic plan.
True.
I mean, that's our long-term plan, which is really what we're supposed to be talking about.
True.
The referendum helps you with the operating day-to-day costs, which we don't really have a lot to do with. so.
Right. And again, the plan is not to do any kind of massive projects until you see a budget in the black.
Yeah. Yeah, and start like your strategic plan, you have it, okay, this is what we need to save for, if we can get back to where we're saving and putting money away and be able to do that, that's the direction we need to be heading.
We will be doing it, again, under my superintendency, we will always be doing an amended budget at the end of the year. It's the right thing to do, because if you have a projected budget, you guys should know at the end of the year what the budget really was. I know it wasn't a big thing in the past, and so Katie and I will start working on that over the next month or so, and then we'll make sure that gets submitted to you guys and sent to the state. So,
All right, and now, what about staffing for this year and athletics? Are we still,
So, Mr. Du Bois came in today, he goes, where are we at with JV sports and seventh grade sports? He said they're 100% a go now.
Okay.
There's no reason to make that kind of a drastic cut. Freshman sport was on the previous, and it's still, it just doesn't, it's not.
The numbers aren't there and there's no
Correct.
teams.
Yep.
I mean,
Not-
nobody else
yeah.
really has freshman
Yeah.
teams to play.
Right, right. And so that, that's something that was before we started talking referendums, so freshman sports are out. But in terms of staffing, there's not any staff members I'm looking to add next year. Again, my goal, I have to be very careful again for next year. I don't want people to believe that now that the referendum is passed and now suddenly.
Everything's great.
Correct, and then
Right.
we're
No,
gonna start
it's still
spending
not.
money. I think we need to continue to have that opposite mentality of what do we need, what's gonna get us to where we need to go, and not what do we want? I need to know what we need. The high school position that is here, that is a conversation we're going to have with Ms. Compton and Mr. Meyer. We are going to fill that position in. Right now, it's an art position. I need to talk to the two of them to find out which one is a higher need at the high school, whether it's a fourth special ed teacher, or if we open up that as an art position again. So that is a conversation I'll have with the two of them before, but that is not a certified position we're going to remove after all. We still are going to go to three classes per grade level. That at the elementary, we're not going to renew those two positions. And then we do have one retiree next year that we already have somebody on staff that will be able to fill that void as well.
Okay.
So in terms of staffing, we're in a pretty good spot.
All right, so our class sizes are going to be,
They're not going to be in the 30s.
okay,
So,
okay, that's,
if you look at that one right there,
This one.
yep, I think the highest class sizes I shouldn't say, you're going to see some classes may reach the high 20s, but you're not going to see the 30s.
Okay.
And so what we'll continue to do, obviously, we still have a lot of instructional aides, and that is one of the things we have to kind of address still. What we'll look to do is support those classes if they get into that level. I know Mr. Cox kind of had a magic number of 80, I think, and if it hit 80, he started talking about entering a staff member. Where I'm at is if we get to those high 20s, get an aide in there that can help them out with that. I think that's a better option right now until we can get things.
What about, is the plan still for not renewing the art in the elementary and moving the choir around and stuff, not having choir at junior high?
So that has already been put in,
Yeah.
the schedules have already been created and
Okay.
made. So that is going to be a thing. Now, again, looking at it next year, if we look at, once we start putting together a budget for not FY 24, but FY 25, we start putting that budget together and we realize, oh my goodness, we have a surplus. We have that ability. I know Ms. Black is more than willing to engage that conversation again and putting that back in there, but at this time to then go back and have two different schools recreate their schedules, it's not gonna happen,
Okay.
so.
That's it.
anything else?
No.
I think we're good.
All right.
Seeing no one in the audience, I assume there's no public comment. I'll move to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I was gonna say, how do we do this if there's just a second?